Amid the scent of mulled wine and cinnamon, the lights tremble over the damp wood of the stalls, and a chorus of voices blends with the tinkling of bells. In the air, something ancient seems to awaken, an emotion that belongs not just to winter, but to memory. Have you ever wondered where the Christmas we know truly began? Not the one in shop windows or advertisements, but the one that smells of freshly baked bread, carved wood, and hope in the midst of cold. This is a journey through the cities that invented the magic of December: Strasbourg, Nuremberg, Vienna, and London. 4 places that, without knowing it, shaped the world's Christmas dream. Because before Santa, before the commercial gifts, there were places where it all began. Long before carols and decorated trees existed, winter was a battle between darkness and hope. In the Nordic countries, Yule celebrated the rebirth of the sun. Bonfires, feasts, and green branches that reminded people life persisted even under the snow. In Rome, Saturnalia broke the rules of the world. Slaves dined alongside their masters. Candles were lit, and small figurines were exchanged as symbols of fortune. These were festivals of excess and renewal, a respite in the heart of the year's longest night. When Christianity began to spread, it understood something essential. These celebrations could not be eliminated, only transformed. Thus, in the 4th century, the birth of Christ was fixed on December 25th, not for historical accuracy, but for symbolic resonance. The Christ child became the new light that overcomes darkness. Bonfires turned into candles, offerings became gifts. The sun's fire became a star above a manger. During the Middle Ages, Christmas began to take shape in the streets, not just in churches. Between the 12th and 14th centuries, European cities started celebrating with parades, theatrical performances, and public feasts. Guilds of carpenters, bakers, and glassmakers competed to offer the most beautiful displays and ingenious decorations. The celebration also became a showcase of community, pride, and art. Winter markets began as commercial fairs and eventually became spaces for spiritual gathering. Christmas thus became more than a religious ritual, a human need for light, warmth, and belonging in the middle of winter. It was the promise that even in the coldest days, life could be renewed. Medieval cities understood that beauty itself was also a form of faith, and it was there, among stone, incense, and ice, that European Christmas was born. Half sacred, half secular, a bridge between heaven and earth. But there were 4 cities that changed everything. 4 places where this mix of history, art, and emotion took its definitive form and traveled across the world: Strasbourg, Nuremberg, Vienna, and London, the cities that invented Christmas. In the winter of 1570, in the heart of Strasbourg, the first lights were lit for what would become Europe's oldest Christmas market. It was called the Christkindlesmarkt, the Market of the Christ Child. It was a modest fair, set up beside the cathedral, where local artisans sold candles, honey sweets, carved religious figures, and home decorations. What began as an act of devotion and livelihood soon transformed into a tradition that would forever change how Europe experienced Christmas. At that time, Strasbourg, part of the Holy Roman Empire, was a border city between 2 worlds: French elegance and German precision. Its location, between trade routes connecting the Rhine to the heart of Europe, made it a crossroads of cultures, languages, and beliefs. It was a place where the sacred and the everyday coexisted naturally. Merchants offered their goods under the shadow of a cathedral that seemed to touch the sky. The Christkindlesmarkt was born as a replacement for an old St. Nicholas fair held in early December. When the Protestant Reformation spread across Alsace, Strasbourg's authorities sought to eliminate the veneration of saints and focus celebrations on Christ. Thus, the figure of the Christkind, the Christ child, replaced St. Nicholas as the symbolic bearer of gifts. The change was not just theological, it was cultural. It represented a new way of celebrating, more intimate, more familial. In the first market stalls, people could buy beeswax candles, spiced bread, garlands, nativity scenes, and small hand-carved toys. The scents of cinnamon, clove, and honey filled the cold air of the Rhine. Everything was made with artisanal patience, a beauty that combined faith and craft. Families wandered among the stalls, coats damp with snow, searching for gifts given not out of obligation, but out of affection. It was also in this region, 16th century Alsace, that another great Christmas tradition was born, the Christmas tree. Historical records show that in 1521, nearly half a century before the Christkindlesmarkt, the people of Sélestat, a nearby town, decorated fir trees with red apples and wafers. It was a symbol of eternal life, a celebration of the rebirth of light amid winter. Over time, these trees moved from the squares into homes, adorned with candles, ribbons, and dried fruits. It was not Germany, but Alsace, this borderland of languages and faith, that taught Europe to face winter with hope. 4 centuries later, Strasbourg remains the capital of Christmas. Each December, its Christkindlesmarkt transforms the old town into a labyrinth of golden lights. In the Place de la Cathédrale, wooden stalls line up under the gaze of the imposing Gothic cathedral, whose stained glass seems to glow from within as night falls. The air smells of mulled wine, roasted almonds, and bredeli, the Alsatian cookies each family bakes according to their secret recipe. Walking through the market is like stepping into a scene out of time. Choirs sing in German and French, children spin on antique carousels, and narrow streets are lit by thousands of tiny flames. On one side, artisans carve wood as they did in the 16th century. On the other, bakers stack towers of Kugelhopf, the crown-shaped cake that embodies the spirit of the region, sweet, warm, and proudly simple. But beyond its beauty, Strasbourg holds something deeper, the persistence of an idea, that even in the darkest winters, humanity needs to gather, share warmth, look to the light, and believe in something. That gesture, lighting a candle, hanging a red apple on a tree, offering bread to a stranger, was born here, in this city that has changed flags many times, but never its soul. Each December, when the cathedral bells strike 6, the lights of the Christkindlesmarkt turn on, and everything seems to start again. As if 1570 had never ended, as if Strasbourg were reminding the world that Christmas was not invented in shopping centers, but in the squares, in the hands of artisans, and in the hearts seeking a little light to get through the longest night of the year. In the heart of Bavaria, where medieval towers seem to sketch a story against the gray winter sky, stands Nuremberg, the city where Christmas became magical. Its Christkindlesmarkt, first documented in 1628, was not just another market. It was a collective work of art, a celebration where faith, craftsmanship, and imagination intertwined to shape the Christmas spirit as we know it today. Unlike other markets that arose spontaneously, Nuremberg's was born with a clear purpose: to organize Christmas as a spectacle for the people. In a time marked by religious tensions following the Reformation, the city, with its Protestant tradition, sought its own symbol to replace Saint Nicholas, too closely associated with Catholicism. Thus was born the Christ kind, the Golden Christ Child, a celestial figure traditionally portrayed by a young girl dressed in a white robe, golden cape, and a crown of stars. Every year, from the balcony of the Church of Our Lady, the Christkind opens the market with a poem beginning with the words, "Ihr Kinderlein, come, little children." At that moment, the lights switch on, the bells ring, and the entire city seems to hold its breath. The Christkindlesmarkt was not just a place to shop, it was a place to marvel. Artisans' guilds, blacksmiths, glaziers, carpenters, and bakers displayed their talents as if each piece were an offering. Nuremberg, famous for its craft tradition since the 15th century, transformed skill into devotion. Stalls overflowed with hand-carved wooden figures, miniature nativity scenes, spinning tops, wooden horses, and the first mechanical toys in Europe. In a time when children had little beyond their imagination, Nuremberg offered them tiny worlds. The city soon became known as Die Spielzeugstadt, the City of Toys. Here, the first lead soldiers, wind-up trains, and tin miniatures were made, later traveling across the continent. Family workshops passed down the secrets of the craft for generations, and winter fairs became showcases of ingenuity. Christmas, with its promise of eternal childhood, had found its natural home in Nuremberg. But the magic did not stop there. The aromas of the market were inseparable from the experience. Lebkuchen, the famous honey and spice cookie born in the city's medieval monasteries, became the official flavor of Advent. Round, glazed, or covered in chocolate, it was more than a treat, a symbol of hospitality and celebration. Its recipe, ginger, cinnamon, clove, and nuts, was carefully guarded by the guilds for centuries. Alongside it, glühwein, spiced mulled wine, warmed hands and hearts, filling the air with notes of orange and cinnamon. Every corner of the market seemed to tell a story. Wooden stalls decorated with fir branches, candles flickering on the wet cobblestones, choirs singing carols in front of the imperial castle, whose silhouette dominated the city like a guardian of time. Snow fell slowly on the pitched roofs, and for a few weeks, Nuremberg ceased to be a medieval city and transformed into a living Christmas postcard. Even though the 20th century brought terrible shadows, the spirit of the Christkindlesmarkt endured. During World War II, bombings destroyed much of the old town, but Nuremberg's residents rebuilt the market piece by piece as an act of faith and memory. In 1948, just 3 years after the war ended, the Christkind returned to the church balcony, dressed in gold, reciting the same poem of peace written 4 centuries earlier. It was a symbolic moment. Christmas, more than ever, was a promise of renewal. Today, every December, more than 2 million visitors come to the Christkindlesmarkt. They stroll among over 180 wooden stalls, listen to children's choirs, and savor the Nürnberger Rostbratwürste, tiny sausages served only here, in threes, inside a warm roll. All of this unfolds under the watchful gaze of the imperial castle, which at dusk illuminates as if still guarding the ancient guilds that made it possible. In Nuremberg, Christmas is not just a tradition, it is an art made of patient hands, carved wood, and sweets that smell of history. Here, every spark of light seems to remind us that magic cannot be bought, it must be built. And since 1628, this Bavarian city continues to teach the world that the true miracle of Christmas is the ability to imagine, again and again, that everything can begin anew. As we walk through these streets that invented Christmas, we've realized something. Every light, every cup of mulled wine, every carol. Each one has a story. And if these stories are making you feel something special, we invite you to subscribe. This channel exists to take you to places where history is still alive, where you can still touch the past. Now, let's keep watching. In Vienna, Christmas has always had a distinct aroma, a mix of hot cocoa, almond pastries, and the notes of violins floating through the crisp winter air. While other cities celebrated the season in modest squares and markets, the Habsburg capital transformed winter into a spectacle of elegance and art, where music, architecture, and nobility intertwined to shape what we now understand as refined Christmas. Viennese markets did not arise from commercial necessity, but from the influence of the imperial court. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the Habsburgs organized winter fairs in palace courtyards, where citizens could purchase decorations, sweets, and toys while attending musical performances. These markets reflected the aristocracy's aspiration to turn Christmas into a complete sensory experience where sight, sound, and taste harmonized in a carefully designed choreography. Wooden stalls lined the streets in front of gilded facades, while citizens admired from a distance the magnificence of palaces like Schönbrunn and Belvedere, which became the stages of a living Christmas tale. Music, of course, was at the heart of the celebration. In 1818, in the nearby town of Oberndorf, Stille Nacht, Silent Night, was first performed. Composed by Franz Xaver Gruber with lyrics by Joseph Mohr, this world-famous Christmas carol captured the essence of Viennese Christmas: calm, beauty, and togetherness. Since then, each December, Vienna fills with concerts and recitals that go beyond music. They are rituals connecting the city to its history, reminding each generation that light and harmony can transform everything. The waltz, another emblematic creation of the imperial capital, also became part of the season. Balls in palaces, New Year concerts, and the first piano and orchestral pieces by Strauss made Christmas not only heard, but felt in the body. Dance and music fused with architecture. Grand halls lit with crystal chandeliers, golden ornaments, and meticulously decorated trees. Every corner seemed like a canvas, every melody a thread linking past and present. Viennese craftsmanship added another layer of sophistication. Stalls offered delicate blown glass ornaments, hand-painted porcelain figurines, and Advent wreaths adorned with ribbons and candles. As visitors enjoyed these treasures, the aroma of sacher cakes, vanilla kipferl, and hot chocolate filled the streets, inviting them to sit in historic cafes where writers, musicians, and citizens celebrated the season with calm and delight. Viennese cafes, with their marble tables and carved wooden chairs, became gathering spots, offering warm refuge amidst the cold and snow. Today, the markets at Rathausplatz and Stephansplatz keep this imperial tradition alive. Lights reflect on wet cobblestones, carols ring out among illuminated trees, and street choirs perform classical pieces alongside roaming musicians. Stalls continue selling wooden toys, golden ornaments, and typical sweets. But above all, they sell an experience, the chance to feel Christmas as a moving work of art, a ritual that unites history, architecture, music, and emotion. Vienna taught the world that Christmas could be elegant without losing warmth, refined without losing soul. Every waltz note, every baked pastry, every carefully decorated tree reminds us that the season is not just a time for shopping, but a moment to contemplate beauty, to listen, and to experience wonder. Among golden lights, Baroque facades, and melodies drifting in the snow, Vienna shows that Christmas is not merely a date. It is a complete sensory experience, a balance of history, art, and emotion that continues to ignite the magic of December, century after century. In Victorian London, Christmas ceased to be just a local celebration and became a global phenomenon. It all began in 1843 with the publication of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The story of Ebenezer Scrooge and the visit of the Christmas ghosts transformed the perception of the holiday. From a rigid religious ritual with limited social contact, Christmas became a time of generosity, family, and reconciliation. Dickens wrote with a purpose: to remind industrial society that, even in the heart of the grayest, dustiest city, the light of compassion could shine brighter than any chimney. His novel not only invented a Christmas spirit, it created a collective imagination that would resonate for generations. At the same time, a gesture from the monarchy forever changed the aesthetics of Christmas. Prince Albert, the German husband of Queen Victoria, introduced the Christmas tree into British homes, inspired by the traditions of his homeland. Soon, illustrations of the royal family around a decorated tree appeared in newspapers and magazines, and the fashion spread quickly among the aristocracy, bourgeoisie, and eventually the working class. The image of a tree lit with candles, adorned with fruits, ribbons, and small toys became a symbol of intimacy, warmth, and celebration that transcended borders. English ingenuity did not stop there. In the same year, 1843, the first Christmas card was invented, a small printed object combining art, wishes, and communication. It was a way to send greetings to family and friends, and it quickly popularized Victorian Christmas symbols: holly wreaths, snowy scenes, children playing, and, of course, decorated trees. The card became a vehicle to export traditions. From London, messages traveled across the British Empire and beyond, creating a globalized Christmas long before the modern era of email and social media. Food also gained prominence. Inspired by Victorian opulence and medieval traditions, English families began serving full dinners, including roast turkey, plum pudding, and mince pies. Each recipe had its own ritual. Puddings, often prepared weeks in advance, were flambéed with brandy, symbolizing abundance and family gathering. Eating together became an act of union and shared generosity, reflecting the new Christmas spirit. Dickens immortalized in his pages. As London grew and the Industrial Revolution enabled mass production of decorations, toys, and gifts, Christmas also became a visual experience. Markets, squares, and streets filled with lights, ornaments, and windows brimming with fantasy. Hyde Park, with its modern winter is a direct heir to that tradition. A space where the city breathes Christmas, with skating rinks, carousels, and sweet stalls evoking the blend of entertainment, commerce, and family celebration begun nearly 2 centuries ago. London's legacy spread rapidly. Victorian customs traveled with merchants, officials, and colonists to the Caribbean, India, Australia, and North America. The tree, carols, cards, and Christmas dinner became universal symbols, adopted by cultures that had never seen snow or Victorian chimneys. London taught the world that Christmas could be a shared narrative, a mix of literature, art, music, food, and family rituals that united past, present, and future in a single act. Today, walking through London in December is walking through the history of Christmas itself. The lights of Oxford Street and Regent Street twinkle over trams and black cabs. The markets of South Bank and Hyde Park fill the air with the scent of gingerbread and mulled wine. And the city quietly reminds us that Christmas was not invented in a single home or tradition, but in a series of decisions, stories, and gestures that made London the city that taught the world how to celebrate. Here, every light and every melody reminds us that Christmas is, above all, a collective imagination, an act of generosity, a bridge between generations, and a gift humanity gives itself year after year. Beyond the markets, carols, and decorated trees, there is an invisible thread that links Strasbourg, Nuremberg, Vienna, and London, the light that emerges in the midst of darkness. Since the times of Yule and Saturnalia, winter has been synonymous with shadow and cold, and Christmas was born as an act of resistance. Lighting candles, building bonfires, decorating a tree, or simply gathering with others was a gesture of hope. That light is not only physical, it is symbolic, a reminder that even in the shortest days and longest nights, humanity seeks warmth, connection, and meaning. All of these cities understood that Christmas is, above all, a celebration of community. Markets, squares, and imperial halls were not merely places of commerce, they were spaces where people met, shared stories, flavors, and songs. Artisans, merchants, musicians, and families each contributed in their own way to a collective ritual that transcended differences of class, language, or faith. That need for connection remains at the heart of Christmas, even when lights become electric and gifts arrive in perfectly wrapped boxes. The same tension between craftsmanship and commerce defines our modern experience. Its origins were simple: carved wood, candles, spiced bread, melodies sung a cappella. Today, Christmas unfolds in shop windows, shopping malls, and digital platforms, and although the essence endures, there is always a reminder of what it once was: handmade beauty, the anticipation of waiting, the genuine thrill of sharing. Nostalgia, far from being merely a melancholic feeling, serves as a bridge. It connects us to centuries of human celebration, to rituals that remind us who we are and how we have learned to seek light in the darkness. After centuries, these traditions remain alive because they celebrate not just faith or festivity, but the human capacity to imagine, to care, to create beauty and community amid cold and uncertainty. They invite us to ask, what are we really celebrating? Is it only the tree, the sweets, or the music? Or is it something deeper? Humanity's insistence on gathering, illuminating the darkness, and remembering that, despite time and distance, we continue to seek the same embraces, the same laughter, and the same light that our ancestors kindled centuries ago. In that invisible thread, the shared light, the joining of hands and hearts, the pursuit of authenticity, lies the true magic of Christmas. And perhaps when we look at a tree, hear a carol, or taste spiced bread, we understand that what connects these cities is not only history, but humanity itself, continuing to celebrate, generation after generation, the simple and eternal miracle of hope. So, where was Christmas born? Not in a single place, nor in a specific year, nor even in an isolated tradition. It was born in every square where someone decided to light a candle, at every table where a family gathered, in every city that refused to let winter remain dark. Strasbourg, Nuremberg, Vienna, London. Each contributed its own spark, its own way of turning the longest night into a collective embrace of light, music, scent, and flavor. The magic of history is not only in the facts we can read in books, but in the everyday gestures that repeat and endure, in the beauty that people create with patience and heart. Every illuminated street, every carol sung, every decorated tree is an echo of centuries of shared effort and creativity. But there are other places where history is still alive, other corners of Europe where the past still breathes among the stones and the lights. Will you join us?